The first human fired, and every alien empire froze in fear. Part 1. The Spark Before the Storm. The great hall of the Galactic Concord was silent. Thousands of representatives from hundreds of species sat in their floating chairs, watching the center platform. On that platform stood a single human woman, her back straight and her voice steady. Admiral Ho watched the broadcast from Earth, his hands tight behind his back. He knew what was coming. He had known before they even sent the request. The human petition for military recognition is, High Arbiter announced. His voice echoed through the hall like the tolling of a bell. He was tall and thin, with gray skin and 4 eyes that never blinked. Humanity has been part of the galactic community for only 30 years. You have no significant weapons technology. Your ships are slow. Your defenses are weak. Military recognition requires proof of capability. The human representative bowed her head slightly. We understand, High Arbiter. We simply ask that you reconsider in the future. When you have something to show us, said, we will look. Ho turned off the screen. His office was quiet, the lights dim. Through the window he could see Earth hanging in the blackness of space, blue and green and beautiful, so small compared to the galaxy, so fragile. They think we are children, he said to himself. He pressed a button on his desk. Get me Captain Priority 1. Far from Earth, past the orbit of Jupiter, the UNSV Defiance moved through the darkness. It was humanity's warship, built in secret over 7 years. From the outside it looked like any other human vessel, simple, practical, nothing special. But deep inside its hull, something waited, something that had never been used in real combat. Captain Sung stood on the bridge, reading the orders that had just arrived from Earth. His face showed nothing, but his mind was racing. New mission, he said to his crew. We are to escort a diplomatic convoy through the broken corridor. Lieutenant Park looked up from her weapons console. She was young, but her eyes were sharp and serious. The broken corridor, sir, that is territory. They attack anyone who enters. Yes, Sung said. That is why they need an escort. With respect, Captain, said the navigation officer, our allied ships will have better weapons than us. At least, that is what they believe. Why do they need a human escort? Sung almost smiled. Because the Admiral wants us there, and because we have something they do not know about. The crew exchanged looks. They all knew what he meant. They had trained with it for months. They had seen what it could do in tests, but none of them had ever fired it at a real target. Lieutenant Park turned back to her console. Her fingers moved across the controls, checking systems she had checked 100 times before. There was her creation, or at least partly. She had worked with Dr. Shin for 3 years to make it possible. A weapon that fired a simple metal rod at a fraction of the speed of light. No explosives, no energy beams, just physics pushed to its absolute limit. The aliens thought such a weapon was impossible. The power requirements were too high, they said. The heat buildup would destroy any ship that tried to fire one. Humans were too primitive to solve these problems. They were wrong. Her console beeped. An incoming transmission from Earth. She routed it to the captain's private channel. Captain, said the voice of Dr. Shin, I heard about your mission. I wanted to remind you that the weapon has never been fired outside a controlled environment. We do not know exactly what will happen. I understand, Doctor, Sung replied. Let us hope we do not need to find out. And if you do need to use it. Sung paused. Then we will make sure the first shot counts. The convoy gathered near a space station at the edge of known territory. 5 ships from different species, and 2 others. They were merchants and diplomats, carrying goods and messages to colonies on the other side of the broken corridor. Their shields were strong, but their weapons were meant for defense only. The Defiance took position at the rear of the convoy. The alien captains barely noticed the human ship. It was small, unremarkable, clearly the weakest vessel in the group. A few of them sent polite greetings. Most ignored it entirely. They do not think much of us, observed Sergeant Jinwoo. He was the leader of the ship's Marine squad, a solid man with a calm voice and steady hands. He stood near the back of the bridge, watching the view screen. They will learn, Lieutenant Park said quietly. The convoy entered the broken corridor. The corridor was a stretch of space filled with debris from an ancient war. Twisted metal floated everywhere, the remains of ships and stations destroyed thousands of years ago. It was dark, dangerous, and the perfect place for raiders to hide. For the first hour, nothing happened. The convoy moved slowly, carefully picking its way through the debris. The alien ships scanned constantly, their sensors reaching out into the darkness. Then the warnings came. Multiple contacts, the sensor officer reported. 12 ships. No, 15, 20. They are coming from all directions. On the view screen, lights appeared in the darkness. Ships, moving fast, surrounding the convoy like wolves around wounded prey. A transmission cut through all channels. The face that appeared was brutal, heavy jaw, small eyes, scars covering gray-green skin. Warlord of the little convoy, he said, his voice rough like grinding stones. You enter my territory, you bring no tribute, this is foolish. He smiled, showing teeth filed to points. Your ships will make good salvage. Your crews will make good slaves. Surrender now and I will kill only half of you. The alien captains began to panic. Transmissions flew back and forth, pleas, arguments, demands. Some wanted to fight. Others wanted to surrender. None of them thought they could win. Human vessel, one of them called. You should run, your ship cannot survive this. Save yourselves. Captain Sung stood slowly from his chair. He looked at the view screen, at the face of Warlord, at the fleet of raiders surrounding them. Lieutenant Park, he said. Yes, Captain. Power up the main weapon. The bridge went silent. Every crew member stopped breathing. This was the moment they had trained for, hoped for, feared. Yes, sir. Park's voice was steady. Her hands moved across the console. Deep in the ship, something began to hum, a sound that grew louder and deeper, vibrating through the walls and floor. Warlord frowned. His sensors were telling him something strange was happening aboard the small human ship. Power readings that made no sense. Energy building to levels that should be impossible. What are you doing, human? He demanded. Captain Sung looked directly into the camera. His face was calm. His voice was ice. Something new. The reached full charge. The targeting system locked onto his flagship. Lieutenant Park's finger hovered over the firing control. The galaxy was about to change forever. Word count, 1,218. The first human fired, and every alien empire froze in fear. Part 2, Thunder Without Warning. The fleet moved closer. 20 ships formed a ring around the convoy, their weapons pointed inward like the teeth of a trap. Warlord's flagship sat at the center of the formation, larger than the others, covered in armor and scars from 100 battles. On the bridge of the Defiance, the humming grew louder. The lights flickered once, twice, as power flowed to the weapon buried deep in the ship's heart. Human captain, said through the transmission, his patience was ending. I gave you a chance. Surrender now or I will tear your little ship apart piece by piece. The alien convoy captains were screaming over their channels. Some had already powered down their weapons, ready to give up. Others were crying, begging for mercy that would never come. They knew what they did to prisoners. Death would be a kindness. Captain, Lieutenant Park said, weapon is fully charged. Target is locked. Captain Sung did not look away from the screen. All hands brace for weapon discharge. This is not a drill. A young crew member at the navigation station raised his hand. His voice shook. Sir, what exactly is going to happen? We have only seen the tests on recordings. Park answered without turning around. The fire's a tungsten rod, solid metal. The magnetic accelerators push it to about 4% of light speed. At that velocity, The impact releases energy equal to a small nuclear explosion. No shield can stop it because it is not energy, it is just mass moving very, very fast. The young man swallowed hard, and we have never fired it in real combat. No, Park said. You will be the first crew in human history to do so. Sergeant Jinwoo checked his rifle one more time. His Marines were stationed throughout the ship, ready to repel boarders if any tried to take the Defiance by force. He was not worried about that. He was worried about what would happen when the weapon fired. Would the ship survive the stress? Would the recoil tear them apart? There was only one way to find out. Human roared, "I am done waiting." His flagship's weapons began to glow, charging for a devastating strike. The other ships followed his lead. In seconds, they would fire everything they had at the tiny convoy. Captain Sung took a slow breath. He had served in space for 20 years. He had seen pirates, accidents, disasters. He had buried friends and watched ships burn. But he had never felt like this, standing at the edge of something that would change everything. "Lieutenant Park," he said, "fire." Park pressed the button. The Defiance screamed. Not a sound that came through speakers or sensors. A sound that came from the ship itself, metal groaning, energy howling, the entire structure shaking as power beyond imagination flowed through its veins. The lights went out for a heartbeat. Emergency systems kicked in. Crew members grabbed their stations to keep from falling. And then the fired. The tungsten rod left the barrel at 40,000 kilometers per second. It crossed the distance to his flagship in less time than it took to blink. There was no warning, no bright beam to dodge, no missile to shoot down, just silence and then destruction. The rod hits flagship in the center of its hull. It did not explode on impact. It did not stop. It punched through the front of the ship, through the bridge where it was standing, through the engine room and out the back. The exit hole was twice the size of the entry hole, surrounded by glowing metal. The ship behind the flagship was hit by the same rod, still moving at incredible speed. It tore through that ship's wing, spinning it sideways and setting it on fire. Did not have time to scream. One moment he was alive, shouting orders, ready to destroy helpless prey. The next moment he was gone, vaporized, erased from the universe by a weapon he never knew existed. Silence. Complete, absolute silence. Every transmission stopped. Every ship froze. The raiders, the alien convoy, all of them simply stopped, unable to understand what they had just witnessed. On the bridge of the Defiance, the crew stared at their screens. The flagship was breaking apart, atmosphere and bodies spilling into space. The second ship was spinning out of control, its crew abandoning ship in small escape pods. "Direct hit," Park said. Her voice was calm, but her hands were shaking. "Target destroyed. Secondary target damaged." Captain Sung stood straight. His heart was pounding, but his face showed nothing. This was the moment. This was when he had to act. He opened a channel to all ships, and convoy alike. "This is Captain Sung of the human warship Defiance," he said. His voice was ice and iron. "Your warlord is dead. Your flagship is destroyed. We have more rounds loaded and ready to fire." He paused, letting the words sink in. "Leave now, or we will destroy every single one of you." The fleet did not respond. They did not negotiate. They did not threaten. They simply turned and ran. Engines at full power, they scattered into the debris field like frightened animals, disappearing into the darkness as fast as their ships could carry them. In 30 seconds, the broken corridor was empty except for the convoy and the wreckage of his flagship. The alien captains began to speak, but their words made no sense. They were babbling, crying, praising gods they had not prayed to in years. They had been certain of death. Now they were alive, saved by the ship they had dismissed as worthless. "Human vessel," one of them finally managed to say. What was that weapon?" Captain Sung did not answer immediately. He looked at his crew, tired, shaken, proud. They had done something no human had ever done before. That, he said quietly, was the future. What the humans did not know, what they could not have known, was that every ship in the region had been recording. The alien convoy ships had their sensors running. The fleeing raiders had automatic systems that captured everything. Even distant stations at the edge of the corridor had detected the strange energy signature. Within an hour, copies of the recording began to spread. Ship to station, station to planet, planet to empire. The footage traveled through communication networks, passed from hand to hand, watched with growing shock and fear. A small human ship, a single shot, a flagship destroyed instantly. By the time the Defiance reached the end of the broken corridor, half the galaxy had seen what happened. By the time they reported back to Earth, the other half had joined them. High Arbiter watched the recording in his private chambers. He watched it once, twice, 10 times. His 4 eyes never blinked. "Impossible," he whispered. "They told us it was impossible." But the recording did not lie. The humans had done what every scientist, every engineer, every military expert in the galaxy had said could not be done. They had built a weapon that changed everything. Fleet Commander of the Empire watched the same recording. Unlike, he did not whisper. He shouted orders to his officers, demanded reports from his scientists, called emergency meetings with his war council. They had ruled galactic military affairs for 3,000 years. They had the largest fleet, the most advanced weapons, the greatest warriors. No one challenged them because no one could match them. Until now. Stared at the frozen image of the human ship on his screen. Such a small vessel, such an ordinary design, and inside it a weapon that could kill anything with a single shot. "These humans," he said to his advisors, "they must be dealt with before they grow stronger, before they build more of these weapons, before they become a threat we cannot stop." His advisors nodded. They knew what he meant. They had seen this before. Whenever a new species developed something dangerous, the solution was always the same. War. Word count, 1,387. The first human fired, and every alien empire froze in fear. Part 3. The Galaxy Watches. The Galactic Concord headquarters was in chaos. Representatives who had not spoken to each other in decades were suddenly having urgent conversations. Old enemies sat together, watching the same recording, asking the same questions. The great hall that was usually calm and formal had become a storm of voices and fear. High Arbiter stood at his private balcony, looking down at the madness below. In his hand, he held a data tablet showing the recording for the 100th time. The human ship, the flash of the weapon, the flagship torn apart like paper. "High Arbiter," his assistant said from the doorway. "Fleet Commander of the Empire requests an emergency session." "I expected that," did not turn around. "What does he want?" "He wants the Conquered to declare humans a threat to galactic peace. He wants authorization for military action." Finally turned, his 4 eyes were tired. "And if we refuse?" "He says that we'll act alone if necessary." On the Fleet Commander stood before a wall of screens. Each screen showed a different view of the human weapon firing. His scientists had analyzed every frame, every energy reading, every piece of data they could find. "The weapon is simple in concept," the lead scientist explained. "A magnetic accelerator that propels a metal projectile at extreme velocity. We have known such weapons were theoretically possible for centuries." "Then why did we never build one?" demanded. The scientist hesitated. "The power requirements are enormous. The heat generated during firing should destroy any ship. The magnetic fields needed would tear most vessels apart. We believed, everyone believed, that the engineering challenges were insurmountable. The humans solved them." "Yes, Fleet Commander, the humans solved them." Slammed his fist against the table. 30 years. They have been part of the galaxy for 30 years. They were supposed to be primitives, cave dwellers who barely discovered space travel, and now they have a weapon that can kill any ship with one shot. It appears so, sir. Turned to his war council. The highest-ranking officers in the military sat around a curved table, their faces grim. Options, he said. We could demand they surrender the technology, one general suggested. Make it clear that refusal means war. And if they refuse, then we destroy them. We have 2,000 ships, they have perhaps 20. The math is simple. Another officer shook his head. The math is not simple. Each of their ships could carry this weapon. If they have even a dozen, they could destroy hundreds of our vessels before we reach them. Then we do not give them time to prepare, the first general said. We strike fast, we strike hard, we end this before it becomes a real war. Nodded slowly. Send the demand. Give them 1 week to surrender the technology. If they refuse, we move. On Earth, the news had spread across every channel, every network, every social media platform. The recording played on screens in homes and offices, in schools and hospitals, on giant displays in city centers. People gathered in crowds to watch it, again and again. A human ship had destroyed an alien warlord. A single shot had changed everything. Admiral Ho stood in the United Nations chamber, facing the leaders of Earth's nations. The room was silent, waiting for him to speak. What you have all seen is real, he began. The technology has been in development for 15 years. It was meant to be a deterrent, a weapon we hoped we would never need to use. Captain and his crew were forced to fire it in defense of innocent lives. And now the galaxy knows, said one of the representatives. What happens next? We do not know. Some species may see us differently now. Others may see us as a threat to be eliminated. Though another representative said, they have the largest fleet if they decide to attack. We are aware of the danger. Ho's voice was steady. We have 12 ships equipped with, more are being built. We are not defenseless. 12 ships against an empire. Admiral, that is not a war, that is suicide. Ho looked at the representative for a long moment. Humanity has faced extinction before. We are still here. We will not surrender. We will not bow. If they come for us, we will make them pay a price they never imagined. In her laboratory, Dr. Shin worked without rest. Screens surrounded her, showing designs and calculations, energy readings and stress analyses. She had created to protect humanity. Now she wondered if she had doomed them instead. A message arrived from Captain. She opened it and saw his face, tired but alive. Doctor, he said, I wanted you to know the weapon worked perfectly. Your design saved lives today. And ended others, she replied. Was a murderer and a slaver. His death was justice. I know, she rubbed her eyes. But now the whole galaxy is afraid of us. They are gathering their fleet. We may have started a war we cannot win. Sung was quiet for a moment. We did not start this, Doctor. We just showed them that we can finish it. Whatever comes next, we face it together. The transmission ended, stared at the blank screen, then turned back to her work. If war was coming, humanity would need more, many more. Ambassador of the Collective arrived on Earth 3 days later. Her ship landed at a secure facility, away from the crowds and cameras. She was small compared to humans, with silver skin and large dark eyes that seemed to see everything. I come with a warning, she told Admiral Ho when they met. They will not negotiate. They have already made their decision. They see you as a threat that must be destroyed before you grow stronger. We know, Ho said. We received their demand yesterday. Surrender our technology or face consequences. And your answer? No. Nodded slowly. I expected as much. They will remain neutral in this conflict. We cannot risk our people against the fleet, but I wanted you to know, not everyone in the galaxy sees you as enemies. Some of us see you as something else. What is that? Hope, her dark eyes met his. For thousands of years they have controlled galactic military power. They do what they want, take what they want, and no one can stop them. If you survive what is coming, if you prove that a small species can stand against giants. She paused. Everything changes. The balance of power shifts. New possibilities open. And if we lose? Then humanity ends and the galaxy continues as it always has. She turned to leave. I hope you win, Admiral. I truly do. The fleet began to assemble. Ships from across their empire gathered at staging points, forming into battle groups, preparing for war. 2,000 vessels, each one larger than any human ship, each one crewed by warriors who had never known defeat. Fleet Commander stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Hammer of Dominion. He watched the fleet come together, ship after ship dropping out of faster-than-light travel to join the formation. The humans refused our demand, his aide reported. Of course they did, almost smiled. They think their new weapon makes them invincible. They think one good idea can overcome 3,000 years of military supremacy. They destroyed with a single shot. Was a fool and a raider. He had no discipline, no strategy, no understanding of real war. Turned to face his officers. We have conquered 100 species. We have burned worlds and broken empires. These humans are clever, I will give them that, but clever is not enough. Not against us. He raised his voice so the entire bridge could hear. We leave in 3 days. When we arrive at Earth, we will give them one final chance to surrender. When they refuse, we will show the galaxy what happens to species that challenge the fleet hummed with activity. The engines of war were turning, and Earth, small and blue and alone, waited for what was coming. Word count, 1,422. The first human fired, and every alien empire froze in fear. Part 4, The Weight of Power. 3 weeks passed, Earth prepared for war. Factories that had built cars and machines now built weapons. Scientists who had studied stars and planets now calculated firing solutions. Soldiers who had trained for peacekeeping missions now trained for ship-to-ship combat. The world had changed, and everyone felt it. Captain Sung stood in a conference room at military headquarters, looking at a map of the solar system. Red dots marked the expected approach routes of the fleet. Blue dots marked the positions of human ships. 12 blue dots against a sea of red that would soon appear. The numbers do not make sense, Admiral Ho said from across the table. 2,000 ships. Even if every shot we fire destroys one of them, we cannot reload fast enough. Then we need to make every shot count twice, Lieutenant Park said. She stood near the window, her arms crossed. The projectile does not stop after hitting its target. If we angle our shots correctly, one round can damage multiple ships. That requires the enemy to line up for us, another officer pointed out. Then we make them line up. Sung turned from the map. They are used to overwhelming their enemies with numbers. They will swarm us, try to surround us. If we position ourselves correctly, their own formation becomes our advantage. Ho studied the younger captain. You have been thinking about this. I have thought about nothing else for 3 weeks. The admiral nodded slowly. Then you will command our defense fleet. 12 ships, Captain. The entire military strength of humanity. I am trusting you with everything. Sung felt the weight of those words settle on his shoulders. Everything. Every human life. Every hope for the future. All of it resting on him and 12 small ships against an empire. I understand, Admiral. On the Defiance, the crew worked around the clock. Lieutenant Park supervised the weapons teams, running drill after drill until everyone could reload in their sleep. The weapon took 90 seconds to cycle between shots, 90 seconds that could mean life or death in combat. Faster, she told her teams. We need to be faster. A young technician wiped sweat from his face. We are already at the limit of what the system can handle. Any faster and we risk overheating. Then find a way to cool it faster. Park's voice was sharp but not cruel. They will not wait for us to reload. Every second we save is a second they cannot use to kill us. She walked through the ship, checking every system, every connection, every backup. That was her creation, and she knew it better than anyone. She had designed it to protect people. Now she needed it to save her entire species. In the Marine quarters, Sergeant Jinwoo trained his soldiers for boarding combat. If ships got close enough, they might try to capture human vessels instead of destroying them. They would want the technology intact. They are bigger than us, Jinwoo told his Marines, stronger than us. They have been fighting wars since before humans discovered fire. He held up his rifle. But they have never fought humans on our own ships. We know every corridor, every hatch, every hiding spot. If they board us, we make them pay for every meter. A young Marine raised her hand. Sergeant, what if there are too many of them? Jinwoo smiled grimly. Then we keep fighting until there are fewer. The days passed. The fleet gathered near Mars, using the red planet as a backdrop and a shield. 12 ships formed a loose formation, each one positioned to support the others. On their bridges, crews watched their sensors and waited. Ambassador's ship arrived quietly, docking with a station far from the military zone. She met with Admiral Ho one more time. The fleet departed yesterday, she told him. They will arrive in your system within 48 hours. We know, we have been tracking them. They are confident, Admiral. They believe this will be a quick victory, a demonstration of power to remind the galaxy who rules. She paused. They may be right. They may be, Ho's voice was calm, but we do not plan to make it easy for them. The galaxy will be watching. Every species, every empire, every world with a communication array will see what happens here. His dark eyes were serious. If you win, you change everything. If you lose, you die as a warning to others. Either way, we will be remembered. She almost smiled. Yes, either way you will be remembered. Admiral Ho addressed humanity on the last night before the battle. His face appeared on every screen. His voice reached every ear. Tomorrow, the Empire will arrive in our solar system. They come with 2,000 ships, the largest fleet ever assembled against a single species. They believe they will destroy us easily. They believe we are primitive, weak, insignificant. He paused, letting the words settle. They are wrong. We are human. Our ancestors survived ice ages and plagues, famines and wars. We crawled out of caves and reached for the stars. We faced every challenge the universe threw at us, and we are still here. Tomorrow we face the greatest challenge of all. Not just a battle, but a test of who we are and what we can become. If we fail, humanity ends. If we succeed, we earn our place among the stars. I will not lie to you. Many will die tomorrow. Good people, brave people fighting for everyone they love, but their sacrifice will mean something. Their courage will be remembered. And if we win, if we stand against impossible odds and survive, then the galaxy will know that humans are not to be dismissed, not to be conquered, not to be destroyed. We are humanity. We do not give up. We do not surrender. We fight until our last breath, and then we fight some more. His voice hardened. Let them come. Let them see what we are made of. Let them learn what happens when they threaten our home. Tomorrow we make history. On the bridge of the Defiance, Captain Sung watched the Admiral's speech with his crew. When it ended, silence filled the room. Captain, Park said quietly, the sensor arrays have detected something. Long-range readings at the edge of the system. Sung walked to her station. The screen showed points of light appearing, one after another after another. Each point was a ship dropping out of faster-than-light travel. How many? He asked. Still counting, sir. Her voice tightened. 100, 200, 500. The points kept appearing. The screen began to fill with red dots, a swarm of enemies emerging from the darkness of space. 1,000, 1,500. Park's hands were steady on her console, but her face was pale. 2,000 and still counting. Sung put his hand on her shoulder. Then we have plenty of targets, Lieutenant. She looked up at him. In her eyes he saw fear, but he also saw determination. All ships, he broadcast to the fleet. This is Captain that have arrived. All crews to battle stations. This is not a drill. Across 12 ships, alarms began to sound. Crew members ran to their posts. Weapons systems powered up, began their charging sequence. Near Mars, the human fleet waited. Across the solar system, 2,000 alien ships moved toward them. And on every world with eyes to see, the galaxy watched. The battle for humanity's future was about to begin. Word count, 1,305. The first human fired, and every alien empire froze in fear. Part 5, the day the galaxy changed. The fleet moved through the solar system like a dark cloud. 2,000 ships in perfect formation, their hulls reflecting the distant light of Earth's sun. Each vessel bristled with weapons that had burned cities and shattered worlds. Fleet Commander stood on the bridge of the Hammer of Dominion, watching his armada advance. Before him, the tiny human fleet waited near Mars, 12 ships against his thousands. It almost seemed unfair. "Open a channel to the humans," he commanded. Captain Sung appeared on his screen. The human's face was calm, his eyes steady. Found that irritating. Human Captain said, "I offer you one final chance. Surrender your ships and your weapon technology. Your people will be spared. Refuse, and I will burn your world until nothing remains." Sung did not hesitate. "We refuse." "You cannot win. Look at our numbers. You must see that this is hopeless." "I see 2,000 ships that have never faced our weapons." Sung leaned forward slightly. "I see an enemy who has forgotten what it feels like to fight someone who can hurt them. I see a fleet that is about to learn why humans should never be underestimated." "Cut the transmission. All ships, attack formation, destroy them all." The fleet surged forward. From every direction they converged on the human position. Their weapons began to charge, ready to unleash devastation. "All ships," Sung broadcast, "fire at will." 12 spoke at once. The first volley crossed the void in an instant. 12 tungsten rods, each moving at a fraction of light speed, struck the leading ships. The results were catastrophic. Hulls that had withstood centuries of warfare were torn open like paper. Explosions bloomed in the darkness as reactors breached and ammunition detonated. But they were not finished. The projectiles continued through their first targets and into the ships behind them. In that single moment, 37 vessels were destroyed or crippled. The fleet recoiled. For the first time in living memory, they had taken serious losses in the opening seconds of a battle. "Keep firing," Sung ordered. "Do not give them time to think." They began their reload cycle. 90 seconds of vulnerability while the capacitors recharged and new rounds were loaded. 90 seconds that they could use to close the distance. Lieutenant Park watched her console, counting the seconds. Around her, the weapons team moved with desperate speed. "Reload in 60 seconds, 55, 50. "Captain," the sensor officer reported. "They are accelerating. They are trying to reach us before we can fire again." "Hold position." Sung gripped the arms of his chair. "Let them come closer. The closer they are, the more we can hit with each shot." On the Hammer of Dominion watched his ships burn. His aide was shouting damage reports, 40 ships destroyed, 60 more damaged, losses mounting by the second. This was not possible. This was not how they fought. They were the hunters, not the prey. "All ships increase speed," he roared. "Close the distance, overwhelm them before they can reload." The fleet obeyed, rushing toward the human position like a wave of steel. Weapons fire began to reach the human ships, shields flaring as they absorbed the impacts. "Reload complete," Park announced. "Fire." Another volley, another devastating strike. This time they were closer, more tightly packed. The projectiles carved paths of destruction through their formation, destroying ship after ship after ship. But they kept coming. There were too many of them. For every ship that fell, 10 more took its place. The human fleet was surrounded now, enemy vessels on all sides pouring fire into their shields. Shields at 60%, the defense officer reported, taking damage on all decks. Sergeant, Sung said into his communicator, "We have incoming boarders." Jinwoo was already moving. His Marines had seen the enemy transports launching from the nearest ships. Small craft, each carrying dozens of warriors, heading straight for the human vessels. "We are ready, Captain. They will not take this ship." The first transports attached to the hull. Cutting torches began to slice through the metal. Jinwoo positioned his Marines at every entry point, rifles raised, waiting. The first warriors burst through. They were massive, armored, wielding weapons that could kill with a touch. They expected terrified prey, easy victims to slaughter. Instead, they found humans who had been training for exactly this moment. Jinwoo's Marines opened fire. Concentrated shots struck weak points in the armor. Grenades bounced into doorways. Traps triggered, explosive and chemical, turning corridors into death zones. The fell more came. The fighting spread through the ship, hand to hand, desperate and brutal. On the bridge, Lieutenant Park kept firing. Her hands moved automatically now, her mind blank except for the rhythm of reload, aim, fire. Reload, aim, fire. Each shot killed. Each shot saved lives. Each shot brought them one step closer to victory or death. "Captain," the sensor officer shouted, "the enemy formation is breaking." Sung looked at the tactical display. It was true. The fleet, so perfectly organized at the start, had devolved into chaos. Ships were bunching together, trying to avoid the deadly fire, creating perfect targets for the next volley. "All ships advance," Sung ordered. "Push into their formation. They cannot fire without hitting each other." It was a desperate gamble. Moving forward meant exposing themselves to even more enemy fire. But it also meant they would have to choose between shooting at humans and shooting at their own ships. The 12 human vessels pushed forward, their blazing, their shields sparking with impacts. Around them, ships began to collide with each other, their coordination shattered by confusion and fear. Fleet Commander watched his fleet dying. Ships he had commanded for decades, warriors he had trained personally, all being torn apart by 12 tiny human vessels. He had never imagined this. He had never believed it was possible. "Sir," his aide said, voice trembling, "we have lost over 400 ships. The fleet is in disarray. Some captains are already retreating." "No," shook his head. "We cannot retreat. We cannot let them win. Sir, if we continue, we may lose everything." Looked at the battle on his screen. The humans were still firing, still fighting, still refusing to die. Their ships were damaged, some barely holding together, but they had not stopped. They would not stop. For the first time in his long career, Fleet Commander felt something he had never felt before: doubt. "All ships," he said quietly, "all ships withdraw." The fleet began to turn. Ships that had been pressing forward now reversed course, fleeing toward the edge of the solar system. What had been an attack became a rout. On the bridge of the Defiance, the crew watched in stunned silence as the enemy retreated. Of 2,000 ships, fewer than 600 remained intact enough to flee. The rest were debris, scattered across millions of kilometers of space. "They are running," Park whispered. "They are actually running." Captain Sung stood slowly. His ship was burning in a dozen places. His crew was exhausted, wounded, some dead. But they had won. Against impossible odds, against the greatest military power in the galaxy, they had won. "All ships," he broadcast, "stand down from battle stations. The enemy is retreating. We have won." Across the human fleet, cheers erupted. Crying, laughing, hugging. Emotions that had been held back for hours finally released. On Earth, the news spread like wildfire. People poured into the streets, celebrating, weeping, unable to believe what had happened. Their species had faced extinction and survived. Their warriors had fought an empire and won. At the headquarters of the Galactic Concord, High Arbiter addressed the assembled representatives. His voice was heavy with the weight of history. The human fleet has defeated the Armada. Effective immediately, the Galactic Concord formally recognizes humanity as a major galactic power. Any attack on human territories will be considered an act of war against the Concord itself. The hall exploded into noise, shock, anger, amazement, respect. The galaxy had changed in a single day. Ambassador found Captain Sung on the damaged bridge of the Defiance, days after the battle. He was staring out at the stars, his face tired but peaceful. "The galaxy will never see your people the same way again," she said. "I know," he did not turn around. "I am still not sure if that is a good thing." "It is neither good nor bad. It simply is." She stood beside him. "You proved that the small can defeat the great, that the new can overcome the old, that courage and determination matter more than numbers and tradition. We lost good people, friends, family. And they will be remembered." She touched his arm gently. "As will you, as will all of humanity. Whatever comes next, you will face it differently. Not as children, not as primitives, but as equals." Sung finally looked at her. "Is the galaxy ready for that?" Smiled. "I suppose we will find out." In schools and homes across 100 worlds, children heard the story. The small human ships, the mighty fleet, the weapon that changed everything. They learned about Captain, about Lieutenant Park, about Sergeant, and the Marines who fought hand to hand in burning corridors. They learned that power was not just about size or numbers, that bravery was not the absence of fear, but the decision to fight anyway, that sometimes the smallest spark can start the greatest fire. The galaxy had called them primitive, the galaxy had called them weak, the galaxy had been wrong. Humanity had arrived, and they were here to stay. Word count, 1,749.